It might be uncomfortable to hear this, but most conventional retirement saving advice is nonsense. Over my years helping clients prepare for retirement, I have seen countless retirees unable to retire because they followed common but incorrect savings recommendations that put them years behind schedule. And that's exactly why I'm making this video. In today's video, I'm going to break down some of the common misconceptions around retirement savings and explain why they're wrong. And you're going to want to stick around until the end of this video because I'm going to provide some practical alternatives that you can use in place of those old outdated strategies. So let's get right into it. There's a fundamental disconnect between the saving and investing strategies that wealthy retirees actually implement and the conventional advice that most Americans follow. And so the first harsh truth is that you should direct the majority of your retirement savings into your retirement accounts. Now, retirement accounts can offer some attractive tax advantages, but just because retirement accounts are called retirement accounts does not always make them the universal best location for your savings. Now, there are a host of problems that retirees face when they are under the impression that retirement accounts are always the best location for their savings. And the first problem is what I call the value confusion. Specifically, when it comes to saving into pre-tax accounts. Think your 403b, your 401k, your thrift savings plan, your individual retirement account. Retirees often overestimate the value of their savings, and as a result, they may overestimate their readiness for retirement. So I'll show you a quick example here on the screen. Say you saved $500 a month for 30 years, so from ages 30 to 60. Now you got a 6% rate of return over that time. Well, at age 60, you would look at your account balance and see that the total value of the account would be this number here, or $502,257. Now the problem is you haven't paid any taxes on those funds, and so at the point at which you need those funds the most, you will have to pay the most in taxes. So you really don't have $500,000 or so of spendable money. And depending on what your tax bracket will be in retirement, you may have far less than that. So say, for example, that you're in the 22% tax bracket here in retirement. Well, then the after-tax value of your account is going to be only $391,760. When we save into pre-tax retirement accounts, it seems attractive because we get a tax break today, meaning in this hypothetical scenario on the screen, this person would have saved taxes in small amounts each year that they actually set the money aside, but later in life, they get slammed with the tax sledgehammer. In the specific scenario I've been showing, if you had been saving $500 a month for every month for 30 years, you would have set aside $180,000. And if you were in the 22% tax bracket, you'd have saved $39,000 in taxes from age 30 until age 60. Now, when you compare what you saved in taxes while working versus what you might pay in taxes when it comes time to live on those savings, the numbers don't look quite as good. So if for a second we forget the numbers and just think about this at a principles level, saving money into a pre-tax retirement account gives you an advantage today at the expense of tomorrow. So when framed that way, it doesn't really look all that much like a retirement account to me because it gives you the primary advantage when you're younger, still working and not retired. And that's kind of a head scratcher, right? And I'll share a quick story with you here. Just a couple days ago, I was talking to a prospect who had $1.5 million saved at age 63. All of their savings was in pre-tax money. They had run some numbers and thought that their savings could support their expenses in retirement. But they reached out to me to double check their math. And it was a good thing that they did because they had run all their numbers assuming that their $1.5 million was all spendable money, meaning that they had not included taxes as a line item in their estimate of expenses. Once I showed that to them, it became clear that while they were close to ready to retire, they hadn't quite arrived there yet. And really it was thank God that we had gotten to speaking, because imagine them having quit their job thinking they had had enough, only to find out that their withdrawal rate was going to be 2% higher than they thought because of the tax that they had to pay. Now, if you want to learn more about how to optimize your savings for retirement, you can click the link in the description below this video to watch a completely free webinar where I break down the savings framework that we use to help our clients live their dream retirement. Now, enough about pre-tax accounts. What if we play the inverse scenario and talk about Roth retirement accounts? Roth retirement accounts have somewhat of the opposite problem. They often look undervalued once you get to retirement. And that's because each year that you save into a Roth account, you do it with after-tax money, meaning you have fewer total dollars saved each year because tax eats into some of those savings. So let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet again. And this time we'll do it for a Roth example. Say we play out the same scenario. Someone saves every month for 30 years from age 30 to 60. They get a 6% average rate of return, and they're in the 22% tax bracket the entire time. In the Roth scenario, instead of saving $500 a month, they would save $390 a month because they have 22% fewer dollars to save as a result of paying taxes in the current year. At the end of the 30 years of savings, they would have $391,760, which is exactly the same after-tax value as the pre-tax scenario. The thing here is that those 391K are all after tax and will never get taxed again. So you can think of those dollars as pure spending money. In the Roth savings scenario, that person would have paid $39,600 in taxes from age 30 until age 60 in order to never pay taxes again after that. But the key thing here is that at the point that they need access to their money, they still have equal amounts of spending money in after-tax dollars. Now, again, for a second, let's forget about the numbers and just think about this at a principles level. Saving money into a Roth account costs you money today, meaning you're going to reduce your spending money today in favor of your spendable money in the future. When framed that way, a Roth account looks a lot more like a true retirement account because you sacrifice today to obtain a benefit tomorrow. Now, after saying this, it may appear that saving to Roth accounts would be universally superior, but that really is not the case. And that's why just following conventional savings wisdom and just saving into retirement accounts without careful thought leads to problems. Because in actuality, we want to be quite discerning and particular about which years and at what times during our savings journey we save into Roth accounts versus pre-tax accounts versus non-retirement accounts. Generally speaking, you would want to save into Roth accounts when you are in the lowest tax brackets. That will usually occur earliest in your career because you will have the lowest income at that point in your life. And then as your income increases and therefore your tax bracket increases, you would shift your savings strategically from Roth towards pre-tax accounts. So let me show you another spreadsheet here, and this I call a tax path sheet. And I'm going to show you a hypothetical earnings chart for an individual who would save over 20 years of their life. The first column here is going to show this person's income. The second is going to show their tax bracket. The third is going to show how much they save each year. In this case, first scenario, we're going to assume that they save $6,000 every year. And on this graph, we're just going to show year 1, year 5, year 10, and year 20 of their income earning journey. And then next columns here are going to be a set of tax effect columns. They're going to show the tax effect of saving either into a pre-tax or a Roth account. Now, in the first year of this person's career, they would earn $50,000 and be in the 12% federal tax bracket. They're single filing and they save $6,000 that year, or 12% of their income. And when they save into a retirement account, regardless of if it's Roth or pre-tax, there is a $720 tax effect. The net savings column here shows the amount of savings left over if this were to go into a Roth account, because there would be tax withheld. And then the tax saved column shows how much they'd save in taxes that year were the money to go into a pre-tax account. So I'm going to unfold this person's year 5 income, year 10 income, and year 20 income so that you can see how the tax effect changes over the course of this person's career. So by year 5, this person would be in the 22% tax bracket. By year 10, their income goes up more and they're in the 24% bracket. And at year 20, when they are hitting their peak earnings years, they are in the 35% single filer bracket. And if you look over here at the net savings over here, you can see in the tax savings column as well, you will see large proportional increases in those values, especially as this person moves into proportionally larger or higher tax brackets. This chart illustrates that it is generally better to save into Roth accounts when your tax bracket is low and to save into pre-tax accounts when your bracket is higher. Now, the thing here is this is a very simple scenario that overlooks one critical thing, which is that as your income grows, it's very likely that the total dollar amount you save each year will grow as well. And so this is a second chart here. Let's unfold this second chart showing all of the same material, but the only difference here is that this person saves 12% of their income each year as opposed to a flat $6,000 each year. And this is much more likely to follow normal human savings patterns. You can see that as the person's income grows, their set aside, which is the savings amount here, grows substantially. And so too does their tax effect. And you can see here that $720 tax effect in year 1 is the same in both scenarios. But when we get to year 20, the tax effect in this second scenario, which is the more human scenario, is almost 5 times, more than 5 times greater because of the larger proportional amount of savings done as that person ages. Now, I'm going to tell you another story here real quick. A client came to work with me several years ago. They had been watching videos on YouTube and had become convinced that saving into Roth accounts was absolutely the right thing to do, right? How could it not be, right? Never pay taxes again. What could be better? The only problem was that they were in the highest earning years of their life, all the way up there in the 37% federal bracket. On top of that, they lived in California, which is a high tax state, so they were paying another 11 to 12% in state taxes, and they were directing all of their savings into Roth accounts. Now, the problem was they were giving up 46 to 47% of every dollar they saved in taxes, meaning that after tax, they only had 53% of the funds actually going into the Roth account. So they were just going to have fewer total dollars saved as a result. And to add insult to injury, based on our projections together, they were never going to get above the 22% federal tax bracket at any point in the remainder of their life. So at the point at which they could save the most total dollars, and being only a few years from seeing a substantial drop in their tax bracket, they were both basically throwing saving dollars away because they were taught that Roth money is just quote unquote better money. Now, I'm going to slowly land the plane here, but I'm going to add one last item as food for thought. Not only do we need to be discerning about which of the retirement account types to save into, we also need to be discerning about when not to save into retirement accounts at all. If you're a super saver and you want to potentially retire before age 59 and a half, you also need to think about how you will access your money in a penalty-free way. Not only that, but even if you retire at 59 and a half, but you oversave into pre-tax retirement accounts, you could end up slapped with Medicare IRMA charges because all of your income will be taxed as ordinary income in the years immediately before Medicare. Now, I'm going to end this video on saving strategies with a final story. Another prospect came to speak with me and they had $5 million, but all in pre-tax retirement accounts. They were 53, frugal, no dependents, and single. And on paper, they knew they had enough money to retire. They hated their job. They worked in tech, and so they told me it was very stressful with long hours, very demanding managers. And on top of that, they said they had a job hop every 3 to 4 years or so from company to company because that was just the nature of the industry. They desperately wanted to be done with that life, but they could not access their substantial savings without paying early withdrawal penalties. Now, frankly, I told them that even with paying the early withdrawal penalties, they could afford the retirement. It wasn't necessarily good advice, and I'm not saying anyone should do that. I'm just saying to illustrate that they were actually so frugal and had so much money that the early withdrawal penalties weren't going to put them financially at risk. But they just couldn't get over the hump that they would effectively be throwing 10% of their money away each year until age 59 and a half. And as a result, they decided to just keep working at the soul-sucking job that was draining their life force. At the end of the day, nothing valuable in life is simple. There is no such thing as set it and forget it. And as much as the world wants to make success seem simple, what sets rich retirees apart from poor retirees is that rich retirees get their hands dirty. They get their hands dirty each and every year as they plan for retirement, saving to an intentional account type, paying attention to their investments, making sure their funds don't sit idle in money market funds or get automatically invested into extremely conservative target date funds. The good news, though, is that the weapon that rich retirees use is available to everyone, and that weapon is attention. By dedicating some extra attention to their finances, rich retirees set themselves apart and end up in a position to craft the retirement of their dreams. So with that said, now you can understand the strategies that wealthy retirees use that conventional financial advice rarely promotes, and you can begin implementing those things into your own retirement planning. And if you'd like to learn more about how to use your attention and craft your dream retirement, just click the link in the description below to register for my free webinar this week. In it, I'm going to walk you through exactly how to apply the knowledge in this video to your retirement plan. Thank you as always for your time and attention. See you in the next video.